In Suella Braverman's interview on Sky News, not her interview on Radio 4, she is extremely casual in the language that she uses. She says that in her efforts to stop the boats, a pledge that night and day she has been following, and she's then interrupted by the interview who says, well, there's 1,773 migrants who arrived last week, Suella. She says, well, it's a bold pledge, what the British people expect. But we're up against a range of forces intent on stopping us. And then she lists those forces: the courts, the charities, the lawyers, and Labour. And NGOs with links to the Labour Party. And they're administering dodgy legal advice. They're facilitating illegal migration. And then you know, she's really loving her rant here, and she says, they, Labour, want to facilitate illegal migration. Now, I don't know whether she has evidence of this, and I don't know quite what she means, because the term illegal migrant has now changed its meaning. So I think she's on extreme... Well, I suspect she's taken advice and she's been told that she's now on such shady ground because of this change in meaning, that even if she's accusing the Labour Party of doing something illegal, she's not necessarily slandering them, because nobody's quite sure what that means. So the old idea of illegal migrants is very clear. It's what Mrs. Thatcher identified, and she said, you know, when somebody is identified as an illegal migrant, they must go back to the country from where they came. And if they don't, then they're compounding their illegality. They're doing something criminal. So you're an illegal migrant if you overstay your visa and you don't leave. You're an illegal migrant if, having applied for asylum, that asylum is rejected and your appeals have been exhausted. Then you become an illegal migrant and you must leave. But Suella Braverman and the government has redefined what an illegal migrant is. In the Nationality and Borders Act in November, they defined an illegal migrant as somebody who comes into this country by an illegal route. That means somebody who crosses the channel in a small boat. Now, it was always accepted that crossing the channel in a small boat was illegal, and it was an illegal route. But it was also always accepted, as Suella Braverman herself confirmed on the 22nd of November at a select committee hearing, when she was asked by Tim Lawton what a hypothetical African migrant would do if he wanted to get to the UK and there was no legal and safe route to follow, that he should go to the French border to Calais and cross in a small boat, and when he got to the UK shores, he would legitimise himself by claiming asylum, and she agreed. About 2 or 3 days later, this law comes into effect. So the law changes. But I don't think that law has been tested. And therefore I think by saying that the Labour Party wants to facilitate illegal migrants, she is treading on very, very thin ice legally. I think the Labour Party could probably sue her. But equally, her get-out clause is nobody really knows what an illegal migrant is. Is it an illegal migrant in the old definition? And if that is the case, that would be an extraordinarily serious challenge. That would be a suable offence. And she should be sued, I'm sure. But I don't think that's... She will wriggle and she will say, well, it's that you don't accept the Nationality and Borders Act. I'm sure a great number of people across the Labour Party do not accept that. A great number of people across the other parties, including the Conservative Party, are extraordinarily dubious about that. I think it's probably one of the most heinous bits of legislation that was slid through in the last 13 years. It is up there with Clause 28 as something that needs repealing at the earliest opportunity, and I trust a future government is not going to leave it for as many years as Clause 28 was left before it is repealed, because it is wrong. I also think it's something that is going to be challenged internationally again and again and again, and we are going to become international pariahs, number one. But number two, we are going to waste so much money in courts because of this absurd redefinition. Now, we have a lot of very vague definitions in law, as she well knows. For example, the distinction between somebody who has been tortured and somebody who has suffered inhumane treatment is very, very difficult to identify. You can really only do it with hindsight, and one of the problems is that Britain, along with a lot of European countries, has this very vague definition which suits us very comfortably. But it means that very often when there is a real instance of torture, the nations can duck out of responsibility and say, well, it's extreme inhumane treatment. And that must be wrong. The law is there to... It's made up of words, and good lawyers can make it work for or against the country. And that's the way the law works. She knows that. She is the person who has tightened up the law in this particular instance, and it goes against the international grain. So what she said this morning is very telling. And if I were a member of the Labour Party, I would be getting rapidly onto Labour Party lawyers to see whether or not this is something, a point where she has crossed the line. Because this is a level of rant which is extremely dangerous. My suspicion is that she gets away with it because there is ambiguity, and because the law that she has put in place has not yet been tested. We shall see.